Parents are terrified of their toddlers. Absolute shaking terror. They're humiliated by what these little people are going to do to them in public, at home, in the middle of the night. They live very much in the moment. Now, when I say in the moment, I mean in the second. Behind every fit, scene, meltdown, and tantrum is a lesson. So you've just taught that toddler that you're in charge and they're not. And that isn't going to work. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Okay, you're making your life harder if you give into this stuff. They were totally in charge of play. I was in charge of when we eat, what we eat, bedtime, getting in the car, coming home when they don't want to leave somewhere. When mom said we're leaving, it's going to happen anyway. So they just stop fighting when they can never accomplish their goal. They just stop fighting. Welcome to the Brat Busters Parenting Podcast. My name's Lisa Bunnage. I'm a parenting coach. I'm a mom. I'm also a grandmother.
And I'm Amy Bunnage, Lisa's daughter, and I handle the marketing and planning here at Brat Busters. While I don't have kids, each episode will dive into parenting topics and Lisa will answer your questions. Let's get started.
Hello again. Welcome back. And Amy and I are here to talk about something I never know what we're going to be talking about. What are we going to be talking about, sweetie?
So the topic is your toddler in control?
Oh,
or in
actually,
charge?
I like this one. I hardly ever say that, do I?
No, you don't talk like this, but...
No, I like this one because I know exactly where we're going with it.
Yeah.
And it's a good one. There's a good message in this one. Sometimes the reason I don't like talking about things is because it's really good in coaching. When it's back and forth, I can ask a lot of questions, but this one's pretty straightforward. I don't need to ask a lot of questions. I usually can figure out what's going on right away. Although the first one comes up and I go, I don't know. I wish I knew. So
I was about to say, just wait until the first
I better
question.
shut up. Every time I talk like this, I end up looking like a fool. So anyway, let's get going.
Yeah, I think we should start off by saying what you consider to be the age of a toddler.
The age of a toddler, in my mind, I've just made this up, is 16 to 35 months. So 15 months and under is a baby, and then 36 months, which is 3, and over is, a child, but sort of more a preschooler. 3 and 4 to me is a preschooler.
Yeah. Do you see parents feeling afraid of their toddlers, or like what do you think the reason is for toddlers being more in control?
Parents are terrified of their toddlers. Absolute shaking terror. They're humiliated by what these little people are going to do to them in public, at home, in the middle of the night. They're terrified. That's what I see. Whenever I get someone hiring me with their toddler, there's usually a level of terror involved. Do you know what they're putting me through? It's like that.
Yeah. I would assume as well, they have no inhibitions at that age. Like they're...
What did I say? I can't remember the term that was used. I just mentioned it last night. Someone said, I thought this was really cute. It was a comment in an Instagram video. And she said, the reason they're so nuts is they're at their purest form. It was something like that. And that's true. They come out, they're all of us, by the way. We all started out like that. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years. In the first year, you were a potato laying on a mattress. How much information do they have? Very little. And not just that they have very little information. This is really important, by the way. You can talk to them till you're blue in the face. They don't process it the same way quite yet. So you say, well, I told them not to hit and they did it. I couldn't believe it. They hit again. I explained why they shouldn't hit. And I'm like, yeah, what's your point? Like they just don't process it the same way. They work off of impulses and, oh, that looks good. They live very much in the moment. Now, when I say in the moment, I mean in the second. Okay. So, and as they get older, it drags out so they can stop and think before they act. But when they're really little, as toddlers, they think right in the second, right in this moment. So they don't tend to stop and think before they act. But you can train them in a little bit of a different way by using consistent corrective actions, which we'll be getting into, I'm sure. And you can do that in that they learn more from a knee-jerk reaction because it's an action that you're teaching them, not words. Their body is almost smarter than their brain at that point. I don't think that can be true, but it gets my point across. Okay, so let's get going because I didn't like what I just said. So let's move on.
It's the impulses.
Yeah. It's all about, it's not a lack of understanding that makes them do the wrong thing. It's the lack of impulse control. Does that make sense?
What can we learn from toddlers?
That they're nuts, that we all started there, that they are pure. They are brand new, fresh human beings, and they're fun to watch because we were all there at one time. So they're fun to watch, but they're also, that's my least favorite age because I like them at home. Well, I love them, you know what I mean? But it's when I took them out, I was always worried because I couldn't take my eyes off them. I could never relax when I was out because I'm a safety freak. So I was always worried someone would grab them or they'd walk into something or, you know. So that was my least favorite age when we were out and about. But yeah, they're cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. So you asked me, what can we learn as toddlers? You're going to learn more about yourself than you will about them. You're going to learn, how much patience do I really have? That's what you're going to learn. And oftentimes it's very little.
Okay, I think we'll get into the questions. So, Matt from the United States,
Mhm.
daughter, age almost 2, prefers her father at the expense of her mother, denies mom, tells her to go away, doesn't let her sit next to her, won't let mom out to sleep or hold her when hurt. What tools can me and my wife use to change this behavior?
Okay. So the big is when you're out, she won't sit still. Say that, read that again.
Denies mom, tells her to go away, and doesn't let her sit next to her, won't let mom out to sleep or hold her when
Oh,
hurt.
sorry. Well, it's the term, the two words that you're using is won't let. Who's in charge here? Who's in charge? She won't let you? She's how old? 2? She won't let you. Give me a scenario and I'll tell you exactly what I would do and say. Give me an exact scenario.
Okay.
Your eyes got so huge. But I want to go through it because the reason why I want a scenario is I want to go through exactly what I would do and say.
Okay. As somebody without any children, let me think about what a 2-year-old would do. Okay. So let's say dad's on the couch and mom goes to sit down and the toddler's on the couch too. And the toddler goes, no.
Okay. So the toddler, let's even up this even more. The toddler screams no and tries to push mom off. I would go, alrighty then. I would pick that toddler up, put them on the ground, and I would sit right beside dad and put my arm around him. In other words, and I wouldn't look at the toddler. If they start to have an absolute fit and bang their head on something, you physically restrain them, but you still don't look at them or talk to them. That is a clear message that this isn't going to work. Okay. So, but a lot of parents get pulled into this negotiating. Well, mommy can sit here too. Huge mistake. Huge. Those are the mini therapy sessions. They're not listening to you. They're watching you. So that toddler doesn't care if you sit down or not. That toddler is just trying to be in control of you. So yeah, I just say, alrighty then, and then pick them up, put them down. Then I'd sit down and start talking to dad, put my arm around him and everything. So, but I wouldn't look at the toddler or give them any attention after that. Now, you're going to have to, the first time you do this, it's going to be a total disaster because they're going to just freak right out. And that's okay. You want that. Behind every fit, scene, meltdown, and tantrum is a lesson. So you've just taught that toddler that you're in charge and they're not. And that isn't going to work. They're probably going to try and hit you and pull you apart and all that. Just physically restrain them. Keep holding them back while you're calmly chatting. They will eventually get it, not that time, but every time they do that in future, you're building the momentum with this. They're going to eventually learn that they can't get away with that stuff. So yeah, you totally take charge, but you couldn't be more calm. And it's these mini therapy sessions discussing, it is disgusting too, discussing why they shouldn't do something and why they should do something. Total waste of time. I find that kind of disrespectful. Their language is actions. Their language is not words yet. Okay, it's actions. Now they learn through actions because it's more of a knee-jerk way of learning. And some of my clients are child psychologists and they have a specific term for this way of learning. It's like they've explained it like this. If they touch a hot oven 10 times, they're going to touch it again and again and again because they're not thinking it through. But maybe on the 11th or the 20th time, they'll go to touch it and then they won't. It's not so much a thought process, but it's almost like their body. It's like a muscle memory kind of thing. I think that's one of the terms. It's almost like muscle memory rather than brain memory. Does that make sense?
Like doing the reps.
Doing the reps. Yeah, thanks for that. So I like that one, doing the reps. So, but yeah, it's like that. That's how you're teaching them. So the first time you do this, it's going to be a poop show. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a total disaster, but you just won. And the next time you're going to win, the next time you're going to win. Now they remember when you messed up. So if you're not consistent with this, they'll remember the time that you're not. Don't be afraid of them because it's going to make it worse in the long term. Everyone's trying to do the short-term gain for the long term, and then they end up with the long-term pain. I go the other way. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Okay, you're making your life harder if you give into this stuff or if you have a mini therapy session. I know people are teaching that out there. I don't look at anyone else, but I know it's being taught out there to discuss all their big feelings and big emotions. It's so overdone. When things are like, let's say you're just sitting with them in bed at night reading them a book And then they look upset. Yeah, I'd discuss all their big feelings and big emotions. Not when they're mad because they didn't get their own way. Not when they're trying to control other people. Not when they're being rude or disrespectful. I do not validate any of those feelings or emotions because they're just a lack of emotional control at not getting their own way. So, that was a long answer.
When you talk about them being in control, like they're two, like are they actually thinking that through? Like I'm going to control mom and dad?
No, what they're thinking is, I want, I want, I want, I want. And they're testing you out. They are watching you. Definitely they are. They're watching you. You know how I know they're watching you is because they never have tantrums all by themselves. It's done for your benefit. So yeah, they are watching you, but they don't remember it necessarily the next time. That's the thing, is their memory just isn't there yet. It's not that developed yet. So they will keep doing it. But like I said, eventually they will catch on. It's not that they're stupid. Like, they're really smart actually, but they're just not developed yet. Okay. So there's a difference between being smart and developed.
So you're saying it's coming from like a genuine, probably a good place of just, I want what I want.
I want what I want. They're not doing it to be rotten. They don't have the concept of that. They don't really have the concept of kindness and meanness yet. They just do what they want. It's all about them. They're very narcissistic, as are teenagers too, but that's another story. But anyway, it's a natural progression in life to be very narcissistic when you're growing at that rate, because they're growing so fast and they're learning so much that they have to focus on themselves and only themselves. Same with teenagers, for a different reason. There's a lot of hormones involved in becoming an adult. So it's the same kind of thing. All their energy has to go into me, 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 me. I can literally remember, we moved, my mom and I, my dad had passed on, and I was about 16, 17, and my mother was building a house. And we were going to move into a smaller, like a ranch style house that she was going to retire in, which she did. And I have no memory of her building the house. I was 16, 17 around then. I have no memory of her building the house really, or moving or helping. I was so wrapped up in myself. And I think that's really normal. But whenever I talk to teenagers and they're really selfish, I think back to that and I think, wow, it's just, you're so absorbed in your own growth. And toddlers are so absorbed in taking in as much as they can get. That's all they're thinking. I want, me, me, me. That's it. They're not trying to be mean. I know they are. Sometimes they hit you in that, but they're not trying to be. They're just doing it to get a reaction, to get what they want. It's their own need. It's their own want that they're after.
I just think that's important to show how we're framing toddlers. We're not framing them as the perpetrators.
No, because their intentions behind it. I always say I don't care about intentions. I just care about actions. But a lot of people, like, I kind of get a lot of people say, well, you didn't mean it. No, I know, but toddlers don't have intentions. They just have actions. So their language is actions. It's not words. And yeah, they just do it it's an impulse. I want that. I get that. They're not thinking it through. I don't want to go in the car. I'm not going to go in the car. They're not doing it to make you angry. They're doing it because they just don't want to do it.
That sounds like a lovely life.
I was wondering why you were laughing.
Just imagine everything. I just don't feel like doing that today.
Don't want to pay my bills.
Okay, we'll go on to the next question. So, Megan from the United States. My toddler is 2.5 years old, and we recently had a baby. The newborn is 1 month old. Our toddler is transitioning really well, generally speaking, loves our sister, uses her words to ask me to give her the baby to her dad so she can snuggle with me. But she has been screaming way more often, especially for mom attention. She only lets me do nap and bedtime prep. Dad isn't allowed to help, or she screams. She rarely wakes in the night, but when she does, it has to be me or she screams. I've been lenient on usual tantrum behavior because of this huge change in our house, and she is generally not much of a tantrum kid, very chill demeanor. Both my husband and I set aside one-on-one time throughout the day, but she is still struggling. Any advice?
It's just a transition time, but I'm going to point out something specifically. I'm going to talk about bath time. Does she want, I'm sorry, I missed out which parent she wants.
It was bedtime prep, but she only wants the mom.
She only wants the mom. Okay. This happened in our household. Both my kids went through this because I was a stay-at-home mom. I was more, the nurturer kind. That's just the way it often is, the old-fashioned stuff. So at bath time and bedtime, they wanted mom. And I remember once my husband at the time was giving one of them a bath, and I heard my kid say, "Oh, I want mom," and it was just, he just wanted mom, right? I yelled out from the family room, "You're stuck with dad, so deal with it." I never heard another peep out of him because he knew when I said something, I meant it. So, in other words, don't let them tell you how things are going to go. So, and then I heard next time he said that, "I want mom." He said it a bit quieter so I wouldn't hear. And I heard his dad say, "Well, you're stuck with me, so deal with it." And they did. They knew when I said something, that was it. Same thing. You did the same thing when you were little. "I want mom." "Well, deal. You got dad. You're stuck. Deal with it." So, but yeah, just lay down the law and keep doing it though. Keep reinforcing that. But you've got to be consistent too. Like if their dad had said, and he was trying to negotiate with them initially, because he's more the pleaser, I'm the leader. So he was trying to negotiate, and he was saying, "Well, mom's busy. I had a bad back or something, whatever." And I still wouldn't have gone in there anyway. I might have if they hadn't demanded I come in. There's a difference. If I wanted to go in because I wanted to go in, that's different. He was a great dad. He was looking after them. They were safe. So, but if I was walking down the hallway and I heard, "I want mom," I wouldn't have gone in because I knew they were safe and they were just doing it because they wanted their own way. So yeah, don't worry about stuff like that, who they want. Just say, "Well, you're stuck with dad or you're stuck with me," and stick to it. These types of things usually make things worse. They didn't in our household because the kids already understand when mom said something, it's on, like it's happening. But if you're working towards your leadership and they have been able to negotiate and get their own way in the past, by the way, you are then it's going to be harder. But you already sort of gave me a little hint, and you're giving her some free passes because you feel bad about the transition. It's kind of a mistake. But what you do want to do, like you don't want to say, "Oh, well, it's a transition." You're going to go down a bad path if you start giving her sort of, leeway with stuff like this. So also, what I would do though is if I'm breastfeeding, I would sit down and make sure I have a book or something I would read to the toddler. So make them part of it whenever you can, but you can't always do that. It's a transition time. You had a toddler and a new baby. It's not easy. I don't give great advice with that because it's just physically very demanding. But overall, don't let her lead the way. Don't let her tell you who's going to give her a bath or take her to bed. Don't let her do that. She's okay. She'll survive with dad. I'm quite sure he's competent enough to put her to bed. And she'll learn.
Maybe a good time to talk about what you do and don't let toddlers be in control of, because there are some things that you do.
You let them be totally in control of play. When you're playing with a toddler, and you should do this a lot because I talk more about connection and bonding with kids than anything. That was what I used when I was working with kids. I had no leverage to discipline them with. But what I would do is I would go real quiet. If they did something I didn't like, I would say, "Oh, didn't like that." And then I'd go quiet for maybe 30 seconds. They hated that because I was fun, right? But it's different when you're at home because you're not going to be fun all day long and then just go quiet every time they're naughty. So when you're playing with them, though, they are in charge of the play. That is the fun stuff. That's when you want to enter their world. It's very important that you give them high self-esteem. If they're in charge of the play and they can boss you around. My kids told me where to put my arm, where to put my foot, and we were playing something and I was like the bridge that they had to drive over. They were totally in charge of play. I was in charge of when we eat, what we eat, bedtime, getting in the car, coming home when they don't want to leave somewhere. Were they always easy? No, my son would sometimes put up a stink. Did I make it change what I was going to do anyway? Absolutely not. "Okay, we're leaving." Oh, I would give him a bit of warning. We're leaving in 5 minutes. And he might look at me, he might not. And they always look like, "Okay," doesn't mean anything. Not when they've decided they don't want to leave. So anyway, I gave him warning and everything. And then we go to leave and he'd start having a tantrum. I'd say, "Sorry about this," whoever I was, talking with. And then I'd pick him up, put him in the car. He just eventually learned when mom said we're leaving, it's going to happen anyway. So they just stop fighting when they can never accomplish their goal. They just stop fighting. But you got to give them something. They were in charge of play. So if it's give and take, you're in charge of all basically the stuff that has to be done, and they're in charge of the stuff that doesn't have to be done. That's a good way of wording it. Yeah. But you got to give them, like, I remember when I was playing with my son once, I remember I was always the bridge. You know why I did it? I was the bridge that he was driving over. Well, I'm laying on the ground like this, having a rest. So I'm laying on the ground and I was the bridge. "Well, mommy, put your arm here." "Oh, okay, put your arm over there." But he would never boss me around with anything else. It was just playtime. He knew that was his domain. And that gives them it sort of feeds that need to control something so that they're less likely to try and control the stuff that you need to take control of.
Okay.
Okay.
Larissa from Germany. How do you deal with a 2-year-old that refuses to have his diapers changed nearly every time, kicks and turns, etc.?
Yeah, that again, you got to win the physical battle. He's only 2. You can overpower him still. I remember both my kids went through the crocodile roll stage. It was in Australia, that's what we used to call it. They do the crocodile roll. But they learned pretty quick when mom said, I'm changing your nappy. In Australia, it's called a nappy. They knew when I said that it was going to happen no matter what. I made sure. Now, it might have been stuck on one foot and it might not have been on very well, but it was on. As far as they knew, I had won. And I would look at the way I'd put the nappy on. I think, oh, geez, what a disaster. But they couldn't know that. They needed to know that when I say I'm going to be changing your nappy, it's going to happen. But their dad, on the other hand, long after I'd solved that problem with myself, this is what's so interesting about them. They know the different parent. So what I would do is if he was going to change their nappy and I knew they were going to test him, I would get a cup of tea and I'd lean in the door frame and just watch the show. Here, do you want a book? Okay, let's get down. If you want that teddy bear, then will you let me change? And they were rolling and rolling and rolling, and it was a total disaster because they knew dad wasn't going to push it. He wasn't going to make sure he won. So, but it was quite cute. The exact same kid, but very different on that change table. And the thing is, they're happier when they're not fighting you. That's the funny thing. They fight you, but they're not happy when they're acting out like that. They're much happier if you can just get that nappy changed and then get down and start playing again. They don't want to be on the table fighting you. So you're actually not doing them a service anyway by letting them do that. You just got to win the battle.
They don't want to. Why do they do it?
Oh, because they want their own way. But what I mean is they don't want to be miserable. And they're usually miserable when that's happening. So they don't want to be miserable, but they do it anyway. Such a good question. Why do toddlers do what they do and it doesn't make any sense? Who knows? Like they do a lot of stuff that makes no sense whatsoever. Like why do they hit their head on the coffee table when they're mad? Why would they do that? Because they're crazy. I always call them crazy. They just haven't developed sanity yet. They're not there yet. They don't understand concussions and bleeding, and they'll figure it out eventually. But yeah, why do they do what they do? They just haven't formed yet.
I gotta say, I've never changed a diaper. I'm 30 years old, but man, when I read your comments, I had no idea that toddlers could do so many things.
Yeah, and I think that's it too. If you've never had experience with toddlers, they can be quite a shock because you can have a very, like a baby's quite different, right? So you can have, and they can still have tantrums, but it's quite different. They're so little. But once they're toddlers, they can bite, they can spit, they can kick, they can run fast too. They can get away from you. They can climb up and get stuff. They're just more powerful without the brain cells developed yet. So I don't think there's a good congruency. I don't think there's a good balance between brain and physical ability. The brain catches up way, way later. So yeah, they seem to be able to physically, I think whoever invented humans, I think that they should have maybe made the brain a little bit more advanced and the body a little bit less advanced. There's just not a balance there at all.
Okay, next question is Jess from Australia. 18-month-old is in dominant stage and will scream and then hit a cousin when they come to say hello or near. I'm asking myself, is this normal? It's every time they see them and continues. The baby is saying go away. I respond by catching the hand and holding it and saying no, and if possible, covering the mouth lightly while saying no to the screaming. I also have told cousins to try and high-five the hit to diffuse the situation and play a game with the baby. Any ideas?
Oh, that's a big mistake. You just made hitting a game. That could be part of it. Also, you're covering the mouth. I don't do that. There's something innate, something just animal in us. We do not like our mouths covered. It's just a human, it just doesn't feel good. Even as an adult, we wouldn't want someone putting our hand over. It's something about it. Why would that be? It has something to do with maybe the instinct to survive. You feel like you're being smothered or something. I would never hold my hand on a kid's mouth. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. Also, I would never turn hitting into a game. You've just sort of encouraged it. Also, I would pull them away and I would make sure they can't get another hit in. In other words, it's going to be hard work. Everyone wants to just do something. What do I do once and then it's all good? You can't. If they're in a hitting phase, you are full on 24/7 watching that. You're going to use consistent corrective action every single time they do it. It is full on. It's a battle. You're going to win that battle. Okay. But it's full on. You can't just say, what do I say to them? What do I do? Yeah, you might have to, well, it's not what do you say, but what do? You might have to do it 50 times. Might take a week or 2 or 3 weeks to get them out of that. But you've already made it a game. So you're behind the 8 ball at this point. So just stop doing that for sure. Just go over. I'm pretty harsh with that kind of stuff. Like I get in there fast. If my kids had ever hit, neither of them were hitters. They're either born to do it or they're not. But if they had ever hit, oh, I would have been in there like a dirty shirt. I would have said no, pulled them away right away, and then I would have been their shadow. Because if they tried to hit again, I would have been right in there stopping it and saying no and pulling them away from the fun or the cousins again. It's going to be an ugly scene, maybe a few of them, but it's just, that's the way you have to do it. And anyone who understands parenting and kids will respect that. Like I remember people used to watch me do stuff like this. And every so often I get some, oh, you're so mean. And I thought, well, their kids are terrors and mine are easy. But anyway, because I earned that. I worked for that. But every so often I get someone more experienced watching me saying, well done. So yeah, they just got it. It's the more experienced parents and the grandparents usually who sort of go, yeah, well done. They saw what I was doing. In other words, I'm not going to let this continue. I'm in charge. You're not in charge. So treat it like a battle, but it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to win overnight.
So the consistent corrective action is removing them.
Removing them, saying no. The word no doesn't mean much, but it just signifies that you're coming in. No, grab their hand that they just hit with and remove them from the fun for a minute or two and just hold on to them, physically restrain them. But if they're still tantruming, I still wouldn't let them go in. They have to calm down before they go back to the fun. It's going to get ugly. I have no problem walking into the storm because I know the rainbow's at the other end of it. No one wants the storm, but they want the rainbow. And I say, well, I can't give you the rainbow without the storm. If they're fighting you now and you're fighting them and they're winning, you have to go through with a storm. The longer you've been giving into them and they've been in control, the bigger that storm's going to be. But that's where the rainbow is, on the other side of that. You got to go through a few storms, though. It's going to take a while to get through the storm. And a lot of parents give up before it's finished. They'll give up right before it's almost done. Oh, it was getting so good, so I started letting it go. And then they can't figure out why the kid took over again, and they're right back to square one. It's because you got to follow it all the way through.
It's almost like breaking a bad habit. Like it takes a lot of time.
It's exactly like that. It's not going to happen overnight. The longer they've been doing it, the longer it's going to take to solve the problem.
Okay. Next question is Lana from the United States. What's the fix for a 2.5-year-old that loves to be chased? We've stopped chasing to play as to not confuse them. For example, ask them to come here to put on pajamas, runs to the corner of the room, wants to be chased. Taking away toy or bedtime stories does not work. Runs away anytime it's time to wash hands, put on coat. I've tried just waiting and saying I'll wait. He never gives in.
Okay, I would grab him first and then say we're going. Like I would do the silent approach. And grab them first. We're going. They want to run. I've got them like that. I just did like a vice grip with my hand. They wouldn't get away from me at that point because they're only 2.5 if they were older. But if they're running and if they were older, I would put it on the behavior board. No running for me. Okay. But if they're only 2.5 and they run when you go out, I would put a harness on them before you go out. And then I would say, if you run, you're going to be put on this leash. And the second they start to run, be ready for it and snap them in. See, this is the thing. A lot of parents just sort of prepare for the worst, but then they hope for the best. But then they're not. Then they sort of go, "Oh well, he's all good now." You let your guard down too often. I don't do that. If I know I'm battling something with a toddler, I don't take my eyes off them until I got that figured out. No way. I'm watching them like a hawk. So yeah, you got to be on. And the thing is, it's worth it. You're investing in your leadership, and they'll respect you more. They'll be happier. They'll calm down. That's the thing too. They'll end up a lot happier because they're not going to be battling you anymore. The battles are not fun for anybody, even not them. They'll do it just because it's a natural instinct to try and get your own way. So they will do it, but eventually they'll give up battling because they'll realize you're in charge and they will be happier. That's the thing. The rainbow is happy kid, happy parent, but you got to go through some real big storms. I happen to like the storms because to me that's, I got an opportunity to exercise my leadership. It's like that 8-year-old kid that I worked with. He'd never met me before. And so he didn't know what he was up against. So he says to me, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And I said to him, bring it on. And he never did. You could see he looked at me like, oh, she knows what she's doing. He was great with me. He was wonderful because he was up against a leader. Was he happier? Yeah, they're happier with a leader because a leader knows how to bring out the best in them. And a leader has no fear of a fit whatsoever. I'm like, bring it on. It's an opportunity for me to exercise my leadership. Like it doesn't bother me at all. So if you look annoyed in that, they pick up on that energy. Your annoyance, your anger is weakness. And toddlers are very tuned into that, by the way. They can pick up on that pretty quick. So yeah, they know they're winning. Fake it till you make it.
So you got to not relax now so you can relax later.
Perfect. You got to put in the work. My kids were easy. I often say this. They were very easy kids right through the teen years. But I earned that. I worked for that. I set myself up as a leader. I was a good listener. I was very good at connecting with them and listening and making them feel valued. Were they perfect? No, because that's ridiculous. No one's perfect. I never wanted that. I never set myself up as being perfect or wanted to, and I didn't want them to be perfect, but I wanted them to be nice and respectful, and they were. So, but I earned that. I worked for that. So that's all I'm asking of you. It's worth it, though. It's really worth it. And you can just relax and have fun with them. What did we do pretty much every single day when you were growing up? Every single day. It was a lot of humor, a lot of laughter. Do you remember there being tension or anger? Or it was just, she's nodding no, by the way. We're on a podcast
Sorry.
here.
Well, I'm trying hard that we don't interrupt each other. So I'm like, because, okay, I'll say in day to day, my mom and I, we speak over each other, but it's just natural. Like we both do it. And we're realizing now as we listen back to podcasts, we're like, oh, we should really make sure that we don't.
And we don't always listen to each other. I'm going to tell you something funny that happened just before the podcast. Yeah, poor Amy. Anyway, this is how dopey I am. She was explaining something about my new Wi-Fi. She's like, oh, don't even get me started on that. Anyway, I've got a new Wi-Fi. And she goes, where's the password? I need the password. And I go, oh, shoot, I forgot where that is. Oh, and I'm looking, and she goes, here, give me your phone. I'll show you how to find it. And no, I want to do it myself. I'm like a toddler. No, me do it. So she's like rolling her eyes at me. So anyway, finally she figures it all out, and she goes, here, you do this, you do that, you do that. And I go, oh, shoot. And she goes, what? And I said, oh, I wasn't listening. I don't even know what she did, because she said, you better watch this, Mom, so you know what to do. I said, oh, shoot, I wasn't listening. I forgot to listen. So yeah, we talk over each other constantly, and we don't listen half the time.
It's okay. They don't learn the first time. They might not even learn the 50th time. I'm hoping on that 51st time I show you, hoping it'll stick.
I'm not confident about that at all. Oh God, that was so funny. Anyway, I laughed so hard I had to run to the bathroom because I just about wet myself. I was laughing so hard. I thought, how stupid am I? How stupid am I? Oh, I wasn't listening, but I was nodding and I was doing it. That's the funny thing. I was doing it as she's telling me what to. And then you hit that, and then you hit that, and then you hit, and then she goes, you got it? Oh no, I wasn't listening.
But your excuse is always, oh, well, I prefaced it by saying it's not my thing.
I always say, well, it's not my thing. I'm good at parenting. I always talk about what I'm good at. I'm good at fitness. I'm good at cleaning.
I'm like, yes, Mom, you're very good at a lot of things. We're allowed to have things we're not good at.
Yeah, and that's one of them. I wasn't listening at all. And the funny thing is I was doing it. So I guess I always say I'm like a 64-year-old toddler. I think this is a very good example of why I do identify with a toddler, because I have a lot of that in me. But I don't have tantrums I never did. I don't have tantrums or anything. But she says, you're not like a toddler. You actually have a real sense of wonder. I get excited over things all the time. And you're not. You're more calm, she's more balanced. I have no balance. I'm up, I'm down. But she's very balanced. She's the calming one between the two of us. I'm kind of nuts. So yeah, I'm more like the toddler. So that's why I can relate to them a lot.
That's good. Oh gosh, we're just getting really into our dynamic here. But I feel like I was like, where are you going to go? You're like, I have a sense of wonder and I'm imaginative. She's not. No wonder.
Well, the thing is that she basically runs things around here. She tells me what to do, but I'm too scattered. Like I tend to get a little bit nutso. So she's very good at that. But yeah, she's extremely witty and fun.
More analytical though.
Very analytical. I'm not so much. I'm more just, that looks good. I'm more the seat of my pants more. But yeah, you're very analytical. But yeah, she's a ton of fun, or else we're best friends. We hang out all the time. So we get along really well.
She's a ton of fun. Otherwise I wouldn't be hanging out with her.
Exactly. I would love her, but I wouldn't be hanging out with her as much. Okay, enough of that. Let's get back. Okay.
Final question. So Ashley from the United States. We're in the early days of potty training my 28-month-old son. We started because he met most of the readiness criteria from a book written from a potty training coach, but we're already in a huge power struggle. We expected it, but his accidents are seemingly not accidents, but behavioral. How do we dance with corrective action while continuing the potty training process without unnecessary shame? Just note, you did mention the potty training coach. I'm not going to, just in case, because we haven't looked into the method. That was that was me saying that at the end.
Oh, well, I don't know anything about what anyone else teaches, but one thing that you said there was he's given all the signs that he's ready. Doesn't mean you're ready. Okay. It's, yeah, he's testing your leadership. He's in charge for sure. But this is, I mean, I do have a potty training course. It's in both of my boot camp courses. It's one of the sections in there. So it's, but because it's a whole system, I can't tell you how to potty train. But what I can tell you is I would never, ever treat, um, even intentional peeing at that age, if they're 6 and they're peeing in their closet, yeah, I would say something, but not at that. And even then, I'm careful. Bodily functions, I never discipline really. So yeah, if he's having accidents just because he doesn't want to go sit on the potty, that really can't happen with my course. In that it's a potty party. It's like a 1 or 2 day, 24/7 potty party. Okay, so you are on them. Every 30 minutes, they're sitting on the toilet. It's a reward incentive based system because you're not rewarding for good behavior. You're rewarding for a new skill, a new habit. That's quite different. So you don't punish it. You don't treat going to the bathroom, if they don't do it, you don't treat it as bad behavior. You also don't treat it as good behavior if they do. It's just, wow, you're learning a new skill. That's how I treat that. Okay, it's very important to differentiate between the two. They're not a really good boy because they're potty training. They're just, wow, aren't you smart? Like, wow, you're learning a new skill. It's more like that. So yeah, you got to be very careful. Remove all the emotions. And if they're having a lot of accidents, this is what I said to my kids. I said my son had an accident, and because they just have, there's no pull-ups or night diapers with this. It's like, that's it. Taking off a Band-Aid, you take off that diaper or pull up and you never see it again. So he had an accident and he peed on the floor and he was quite devastated. But it's important they feel it roll down their legs, right? So I looked at him. I remember we were in the kitchen and he looked like he'd never done that before because he'd always had a diaper on. So he's peeing and it's all going down his legs and he looks up at me and he looks scared. And I said, oh, mommy sometimes pees on herself too. No worries. And he kind of went, oh, okay. See, so I didn't make it like it was a negative. I said, well, we're just learning here, but mommy does it too. No big deal. You always clean up the mess. Never get them to do it because that would be more of a punishment. So, but yeah, I can't go into the whole thing because it's a big core. It's a big section. It's how to potty train. It's a potty party. But yeah, it's not something I would ever discipline. And he's little. Okay, he's only at 28 months. He's still really little. Now, if he was 8 years old and purposely going and peeing across all the kitchen cabinets or something, I've heard of that before, by the way, more than once. Heard of stuff like that. So yeah, that's different. But he's not using urine as a weapon quite yet. So
I genuinely don't know what I would do in that situation.
don't know what you would do what if they pee across all the cabinets. Yeah, well, that's coaching. So
Okay.
and I've heard a lot worse than that. I keep things pretty, I'm pretty bland when I talk about parenting publicly. But in coaching, yeah, a lot of stuff comes up that you will never hear me talk about. So yeah, that's bland compared to some of the stuff I hear because I specialize in teenagers too. So you can just imagine some of the stuff I hear. That's coaching. And parents always think, have you ever heard of this before? And I go, yeah, just yesterday. Like it's not, they always think they're alone. You know why? Because the worse the problem, the less likely parents are to talk about it. They're embarrassed. And I say, don't talk about it in public either. You don't want to shame your child. You don't want that to be a memory that other people have of your kids. So just tell me and talk to yourselves and talk to me. Don't tell anyone else what your kid is doing. We don't want to shame them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important.
So we're treating potty training and all that stuff just like you're learning to crochet.
It's a little bit messier.
Yep. But you're not going to punish your kid just because they don't crochet correctly.
Oh, I might. I'm kind of passionate about crocheting. You get that's actually a very good analogy. Yes, that's very true. Was that the very last question?
That was.
Okay, we don't have any stories we're going to tell. I already told the stupid one that I did.
Well,
No, I
I was thinking maybe just a little tidbit. I don't know if I was a toddler at the time because you were talking about how people get embarrassed by their toddlers. How I corrected you when you were in fact busy with a
I
friend.
thought you were going to tell the big story that I'm not allowed to tell.
No.
Okay. I was talking to a school mom. I think we were at the top gate at the school and I was picking my kids up. She would have been, I don't know, 5, 3, I don't know, little. And she was very, very sweet, easy. She was a very easy little child, just very sweet. And so anyway, but she talked a lot because we talked a lot in the house. She had to, in order to survive in our household, you had to talk a lot because my son and I never shut up. So she learned how to talk. But anyway, she was very polite. So she never interrupted or anything, except this time. I'm talking to another mom that I didn't particularly like. And it was her kid too. I didn't want her kid playing with my kid. I didn't want to socialize with this mom, right? Her kid was pretty wild. So anyway, and I was trying to get out of it. She goes, well, how about if we get together Saturday? Are you busy Saturday? So my daughter's right there, sweet, quiet. And I said, actually, we're busy that day. We're going down to wherever. I made up some lie. And my daughter says, she pipes up. She says, no, mommy, remember just today you were saying we got nothing to do all day Saturday. You were looking for something to do. Remember that? And I went, oh, right. That's right. No, but I did end up doing this. I made those reservations after that or something. I could have killed her. We get in the car and I didn't say it. As soon as we got in the car, wherever we were, I turned around and I gave her this look and she goes, what? And I said, I was lying because I didn't want you socializing with that kid. I didn't want to have them over. I didn't cheat. And I said, don't you ever call me on a lie again, because lying is good sometimes. But she was devastated. She was in so much trouble. She'd never been in trouble like that, I don't think. Like, very rare with her. But yeah, so lying is okay sometimes.
I learned a valuable lesson that day.
She was so proud of her. No, mommy, remember? Like, she never interrupted. But when she thought she had a good point, she was in there like a dirty, no, mom, remember you said you had nothing to do? You were looking for something to do? Oh, I could have killed her. Anyway, but I didn't. She's here today for proof that I didn't.
But only because she finds me entertaining.
And funny. Well, I mean, I'd still love you no matter what, but we wouldn't hang out as much if you weren't so much fun. Because we do have a lot of fun.
We'll take that as a compliment.
Okay, well, we'll wrap it up here with that on that note. And thanks so much for joining us from Lisa and Amy and the Brat Busters Parenting Podcast. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're ready to dive deeper, check out bratbusters.com to learn more about the behavior board, parenting courses, and private one-on-one coaching with Lisa. If you've enjoyed the show so far, we'd love it if you could take a moment to follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more parents just like you. The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. Lisa is a parenting coach, mom, and grandmother. She is not a licensed psychologist or counselor. Her services do not replace the care of psychologists or other healthcare professionals. For a full disclaimer, please visit bratbusters.com/disclaimer.